Just 1 year ago, we reviewed the top 5 Japan ETF and you really like that content, so it's time for an update. Since then, the Japanese economy went into recession, the Japanese yen went down against the USD. The Japanese economy lost 1 rank to Germany, becoming the 4th largest economy in the world, and the NISA retirement account got launched. So there's a lot of things to update. And this time, it's not only the top 5 US denominated ETF we're going to look at, we're going to also have a top 5 Japanese yen denominated ETF. So there is a lot to cover. All of those ETFs come from top-tier institutions and they are perfect for a buy and hold strategy. I buy this kind of product myself. For the US denominated ETF, we're going to look at indexes because they are easier to manage and understand when you are investing from abroad. But for Japan, already all those indexes are well covered by the mutual funds. So we're going to look also at some different ETFs to try to get a bit more returns. So whether you like investing in Japan or just investing in general, this video is definitely for you. My name is Gerald from Economia. Welcome back to the channel and let's get started with the US denominated ETFs. There are many Japan focused ETFs as you can see on screen. So I selected those that had the best performance, especially in the past 1 year, with the lowest expense ratio with a focus on indexes. The number one is the WisdomTree Japan Edge Equity Fund or DXJ. It is focusing on the index of the same name. It's export focused, dividend weighted, and it's hedged against currency fluctuations. So it's a pretty safe ETF to look at. It has a reasonable expense ratio. It is fairly large and it has had very good performance in the past year. You can see as well its holdings very familiar, very big Japanese blue chips in there. So it's a very good first step into the world of index investing into Japan. Our number two is the Franklin FTSE Japan Edge ETF or FLJH. This one is quite interesting because it's not only large cap, it's large cap and mid cap, has an interesting approach, is also hedged against currency fluctuation. It's much smaller in terms of asset under management. It has a lower expense ratio and has had quite interesting and quite good returns on the past year and the past few years before that. You can see also its holdings, maybe less familiar names, but still very, very solid. And it's also quite an interesting choice if you were to start investing on the Japanese market. Number 3 is the iShares Currency Edge MSCI Japan ETF or HEWJ. This one is very interesting because it's actually tracking another ETF that's called the iShares MSCI Japan ETF with a bit of currency edge. So this sister or brother ETF has the following holdings. Very blue chip, very well known Japanese company. This should not be too much of a surprise. So that's the background. Now, the ETF we are interested in, HEWJ, has had good performances in the past few years, low expense ratio, smaller assets under management, but a pretty good option as well. And for its holding, no surprise, most of its holdings are from the other ETF I was mentioning, plus some short positions for the currency edge. So nothing speculative here, it's again just for currency edge and that's why it's part of our top 5. So a good option as well for you to consider. X-Tracker MSCI Japan Edge Equity ETF. Again, we are tracking the MSCI Japan. We have an edge against currency fluctuation and we are looking at large to mid cap as well. Smaller in terms of asset under management. Good also performance on the past year replicating the MSCI. The holdings are also based on the MSCI because it's trying to replicate it. So it's very similar to the previous one as well. And also the expense ratio is quite good. So as you can see, that gives you another option if you are more into this international index. And number 5 is the WisdomTree Japan Edge Small Cap Equity Fund. So as the name indicates, we are looking at Japanese small cap. It's dividend weighted and the goal is trying to find better performance when we are looking at smaller companies compared to the mid cap or large cap. Again, we are hedged against currency movement. So quite interesting, quite smaller, Relatively okay expense ratio here, and you might recognize some of the names, although those holdings are quite domestic. So if you're not very familiar with Japan, some might look completely new to you. But again, a very interesting way to change a bit the approach to investing into this country, because usually when we're investing abroad, we do not have access to small caps, which sometimes offer better return and better growth prospects. So here you go, the top 5 US denominated Japan focused ETF. And if you do not have Japanese yen to invest and only USD, you can stop watching now. You have all the information you need. But before you go, please, if you like this content, give it a like. Do not hesitate to subscribe for more content and leave a comment down below to let me know if that was interesting or if you want different information. But before you leave, if you're interested in knowing more about Japan-focused ETFs in Japanese yen, or if you have Japanese yen to invest, please stay, because now we're going to look at the top 5 Japanese yen denominated ETFs. So for those Japanese yen denominated ETF, we're going to take a little bit larger approach. It's not going to be only the top indexes. That should be interesting. And while I was doing all my selection, I ended up having a selection that is only based on Nomura funds. Nomura is one of the largest asset manager in the country and one of the larger stockbroker. It just happened that selecting the best performing one were all Nomura. So number 1 is the Nomura Next Funds Nikkei 225. The Nikkei 225 is one of the main indexes in Tokyo. It's basically the top 225 companies. So here you're going to cover names that you definitely know. As you can see, the holdings, it's a very, very large fund. As well as you can see, it's absolutely massive with a very low expense ratio. So it's a good way to basically get exposure to the top of the Japanese stock market. Number 2 is also Nomura, also Next Funds, but this one is Topix. Topix is the main index of the Tokyo stock market. So it's basically the whole index. So you get exposure not only to the top 225, but to the whole market. So the performances are a tiny bit lower than the previous one. It's still a massive ETF. It's also very good expense ratio. So that gives you access to everything. But again, this number 2 and this number 1 are in direct competition with the usual mutual fund that you can find anywhere in Japan. So it might not be the best choice, except if you like the ETFs better than the mutual funds. It's completely up to you and how you do your calculation. Now, let's get into something much more different than what we've done so far with number 3, 4, and 5. Number 3 is the Nomura Next Funds Topix Banks. The Topix Banks is one of the numerous sub-indexes of the Topix. This one divides the Topix in 33 sectors, and one of those being the banks. So this is the one that this ETF is trying to replicate. The banking sector had a fantastic year last year, and actually for a couple of years with the Japanese yen going down. So all the money they had investing abroad got them a lot of money. There was a lot of lending happening in Japan. There was a lot of things. Also, thanks to the NISA coming, a lot of money pouring into the market. So it was fantastic for the banking sector. A very, very good performance. As you can see, low expense ratio, a bit higher than the other one because it's a bit more specialized. But again, here, really, really good performances that is worth looking at if you are looking for better return in Japan. And number 4 is still Nomura Next Funds Topix 17 Banks, another index or sub-index, I should say. The Topix 17 indexes is basically taking the Topix again, but rather than dividing it in 33 sectors, it's divided in 17 sectors, and this one is the banking one. The same background of having very, very good return for the economic reason I just mentioned, but it's narrower and we get better return on this one. Really an interesting one if you want to look at banking, and really good expense ratio as well comparatively. So interesting as well to look in the banking sector. And now we're going to the number 5, Nomura Next Funds Topix Energy Resources. Yes, energy, so important for every economy in the world, but specifically for Japan that has absolutely no natural resources, is importing a lot, and we know what has happened in the market in the past year related to energy. So this one has been working on the energy market, on the currency market, on every possible ways to try to find returns, and it found a lot of returns. Look at those returns, really impressive, especially when you compare to the expense ratio. This one, if you're looking for returns, is definitely a good one, but it remains really volatile because it's depending on what's happening globally, what's happening in the Middle East, where most of the oil for Japan is coming from. So that one is one you could watch, but it's not for the faint of heart. It's really one that can bring you a lot or take a lot from you. But again, an interesting one to look at to diversify the way you're investing into the Japanese economy. And that is it. This is your top 5 Japan ETFs denominated in Japanese yen. So you see, we took a different approach to try to find better returns. If you prefer to limit yourself to general indexes and compare it to the mutual funds, here I give you another list of more regular or more general index fund focused ETFs. I'm not going to go into the details, so if you want to explore it a bit, just push the pause button and take time to look at all the details. Despite the recent changes, the Japanese economy is still a very good option to diversify your portfolio with its export-driven economy and very large corporations. If you're based in Japan, these ETFs also offer you an opportunity to diversify yourself away from general indexes and all the mutual funds. In any cases, it's a good opportunity to reinforce your buy and hold portfolio. If you like this content or learned something, please give it a like and do not hesitate to subscribe for more content to come. And if you would like me to change anything or have any ideas, please leave a comment down below. That would help a lot. Thank you again for watching. And if you are interested in more investing and wealth building videos, I've prepared these for you. Thank you again, and until next time, goodbye.